Thanks for having me, Gene. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah, great to have you on the show. So you sent me this really cool system that you have of wrestling. I don't know exactly what you call it, but talk about that. I just found it interesting. I thought maybe it'd be good to jumpstart with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, like anything, nothing's completely my own. It's a lot of what I've learned over the last 20 years coaching wrestling, and what I've found really being around elite guys more and more. Especially just coming back from Super 32 a couple weeks ago. There's some things I kind of noticed, between most of the guys that I watch wrestle, even the elite guys that are in our club that are wrestling, they share certain characteristics. And I started to come together because a lot of these things I'm trying to think about for my son, the high school team where I coach at, the club guys. And I started kind of thinking like, you know what, man, a lot of these elite wrestlers, it comes down to 5 pillars, right? And we talk about strength, talk about wrestling. Those are the ones that growing up, that's all we really heard of. But now you add mindset, nutrition, and wellness in there, and it's just things that there wasn't enough exposure when we were at a young age in wrestling.
No, I don't know why. I mean, it was important then too.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, you kind of broke up a little bit there. You got a little choppy.
Oh, okay. No, so yeah, it was important then too, and it's important now, and
Oh, yeah.
it's a shame because I mean, how many guys I mean, how many people have said to me, "I wish I had your program back when I was younger." I mean, I hear that constantly, or the people who are on our
Yeah.
program, I wish I would have started earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like the big hold up there is a lot of times, parents are thinking it's like, well, how's the kid going to like it? But I think it's something that you have to almost like you have to jumpstart a kid to where you're like the club. You got to go to the club if you want to be good at
Yeah.
wrestling. You got to go to the club.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like you said, you look at elite athletes in the 90s, and I go back to like Michael Jordan, these guys knew the importance of a mindset and mental training. Phil Jackson, like all of those guys. And I'm not a big basketball fan, but I'm a fan of successful people.
Exactly.
And it was there. It wasn't at the younger ages as much as it is today. Like the availability for information for kids my son's age, high school level is unbelievable. Nutrition, the wellness factor. There's so much out there that it's almost like you got no excuse not to be successful, right?
Yeah, it starts to get oversaturated where you see like different people popping
Yeah.
up that are like mentors, and it's like, well, what is that? And you find a
Yeah.
lot of times, there's no. It's almost like the blind leading the blind. Like now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, having any mentor is better than having no mentor. So that's
Absolutely.
get a mentor, but at the same time, you got to make sure you're actually working on your mindset the right way because they
Yeah.
spend a lot of time. You're always investing your time, no matter what you do, and there's always an investment of time. You want to make sure it's moving in the right direction. It's progressing forward.
You want to make sure you got that return on investment, right? The ROI. Did you see Jordan Burroughs post earlier today?
Yeah,
He made it.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, give your yeah.
I mean, he made a great post about club hopping and coach hopping, and he said it perfectly. And it's things I've talked to about parents. Like, and again, when you have a new wrestling parent in the game, they're always getting pulled in a million different directions. Every club they go to, parents are telling them they need to do this, coaches, so they're like, I need to get my kids at a million different places. And it's like, and that's a lot of the problems I'm seeing in the classroom. There's so many tools. So we're like a jack of all trades, but we're a master of none. And I think Jordan, he hit the nail on the head when he talked about the importance of, hey, it's great to seek out different competition, maybe get into a different club room. But the reality is you should have one club coach that fits your system and your style, your mentality, and that's who you should stick with.
Yeah, plus the other thing I was thinking about from a mindset point of view is then a lot of times these parents don't have reserved funds. I mean,
Yeah.
remember, you're pulling from one pot. You're pulling from
Yep.
one income or family, two incomes. So every dollar you're spending in one place, it's a pull from another place. So if you're
Yeah.
belonging to two or three clubs, several $100s a month for the club. And
Mhm.
then when it comes to, hey, your kid really needs mindset, and they're thinking, well, they're chasing the different clubs. No, belong to one club and do
Yeah.
the mindset training. Otherwise, because we're hearing constantly, oh, it's too expensive, it's too expensive. But
Yeah.
you're throwing your money away for pointless some tournaments you shouldn't be going to. Certain
Mhm.
clubs, you're going to extra clubs, and what do you notice about Jordan Burroughs' club post? Everyone loves it. All the club owners, they
Yeah.
love it. They're like
Yeah.
constantly posting it. It was a really, it was a big hit. I got to pull that up here. Let me see what it is.
Yeah, it was great, man. I was reading it on the way home from work. My wife was driving, and I came across it finally, and I'm like, "Though, talk about nail on the head." And Brian Stoll mentioned, like, I would love for Jordan to have a talk with Ernie Monaco about this, and then I chimed in, in Buxton, because I think it was 2 years ago where you had Ernie and Jeff on that Mindset podcast, and it was awesome. It was like I wish it was a 4-hour podcast, because I can listen to two of them talk all the time. And I remember having conversations with Coach Buxton when I was kind of working at the club, and I was fortunate enough to wrestle for Coach Buxton, and that was one of the big things he talked about, is just the fact that kids, there's no loyalty anymore, and that frustrated them.
Oh yeah, and when we were, by the way, when we shot that episode, the episode that we released was the edited version. So as you'd imagine, among close friends, there's a lot because then what happened is, as time went on, there was a naming of names, and it started to get concrete from wrestlers all the way back from the 90s up through now of what people did do, what they shouldn't have done, and lessons learned. But we don't want to release that to the general public. And it's not like no one was like talking down about anyone, but just, it's a touchy subject when it's, these are people's careers, and it's hard, But yeah, they said, I got here Jordan Burroughs' article here. Yeah, we should go through this. Like a regular
Absolutely. But those are two of the best minds in business, so it's like it's hard to.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Again, what?
I was going to say, like, those are two great minds that, like, that's criticism you got to take from them, and be like, hey man, these are two guys that have been there, done that, coached the best wrestlers in the country. So like what they say has value. So you're going to hurt some people's feelings, but you know what? Like, those are two guys you got to listen to.
You have to listen. And unfortunately, a lot of times the parents, they're not listening to them. They're listening to the parent of the kid who's succeeding right now, which is, again, from our perspective, that's bonkers nuts. But you're passing by a legend, and you're listening to some dad who's never done it before.
Yeah, and that's.
Go ahead. And then we'll.
I was just saying we get frustrated with parents, but we also have to put ourselves in parents' shoes. A lot of these parents, if they didn't wrestle before, they're so new to this, and they don't even like. They're following the masses, and like. Like I get upset with some parents sometimes, but it's like, what? Like, they don't know any better. So it's up to us as coaches to coach them up as well.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, really, when you look at it for intelligence is not, I mean, when you're doing what another kid's dad is telling you to do, it's like, who's the dad? He's a guy.
Yeah.
He's a guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. He doesn't know anything. But what you should be doing is listening to coaches and legends of the sport. That's what's going to get you to the next level. So speaking of legends, that might be a good angle to go. I wasn't planning on doing this, but Jordan Burroughs, let's break this one down. Regularly changing wrestling clubs doesn't promote growth, it limits it. And this is 17 hours ago he posted.
Yep.
Let me preface this by saying that I'm a wrestling club owner, and I have a son who is wrestling, right, Beacon Burroughs, and yet I promise neither of these facts influence this opinion. Other parents believe that more training sessions and a variety of techniques from Barry's coaches will equate to better wrestling and more knowledge. I believe it's the opposite. In wrestling, the goal isn't to learn a ton of skills, but to find the style, system, and perfect it. The more people leading you, the more likely the approach and ideas will conflict, causing confusion, potentially limit your ability to rehearse the foundational reps that will help you improve. For example, if one club teaches you to throw, another to shoot, and last to be a counterattacker, it doesn't mean you'll master 3 positions. It likely means you'll spend only a third of your available practice in each area, limiting your development. Bottom line is more isn't always better. There's a trend in youth wrestling, and I'm sure there are countless more examples throughout the country that holds true. The son of the wrestling club owner often goes on to become the club's most successful wrestler long term. And the examples he gave are Sebastian Rivera, Olympic bronze medalist, Sonny Amato from Dragon, Anthony Knox, enough said, and then Santinella brothers, sure thing, and Chris Foka from Red Nose. So I guess give some talk on that, give some dialogue over there.
Yeah, like I said, and there's everything about that post. Like there's so many things he touched upon that I think are so important. And like he said, like you can go to one club and maybe that coach is primarily throws. You have a counter offensive coach or a more offensive coach. Like you're not perfecting. And I think too much in the sport. Like I always tell my parents, any parents that want to like do private lessons with me, I'm like, listen, I'm not flashy. Like if you want flashy, you might want to have a different coach. Like I'm going to teach kids basics, fundamentals. I want this. Yes. The meat and potatoes. That's the stuff listen, you watch college, Olympic level, there's some really flashy guys, but when it comes down to it, the guy that wins these matches or the gal that wins these matches are fundamental in positions. And that to me is like, I love watching a good hand fight where everyone says like wrestling's boring. Like the particulars of where someone's head is, their hand placement, that stuff, those small details are so intriguing to me because that's what makes our sport so awesome. Like it's the little things in our sport that is the difference that separates these elite wrestlers.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you're seeing that with those names right there.
Yep.
Burroughs goes on to say there's countless other all over the country. Now, I'm not insinuating that my son will be the best athlete at his club. However, there's a trend. Common denominator, these wrestlers didn't jump from club to club on different nights while drawing different philosophies from dozens of coaches who were not aligned with one another. Most of their training happened at one place with coaches who brought into the same system. And then I guess we comment on this, other contributing factors. One, trust the process. They must. Dad is running the show, although they don't have much of a choice here. It's nice wrestlers for coach you believe in. They say at one place and buy in. Here's the added bonus. Since Dad is the coach, the same ideals are taught in practice and also reinforced at home. There's no conflict in philosophy. So what's your take on that? Let's go through that.
Yeah. So again, it comes down to that, and it's a big part of the winning mindset program. This idea of process over outcome. And so many parents have a hard time, and wrestlers included, have a hard time seeing the big picture, right? They line up the big tournaments. Hey, I wasn't successful in it. So what I'm doing is not working. I need to change. Or how about you look at the results differently, right? Hey, like when I get kids that have never wrestled before, I go, you guys are going to get hung up on whether you're getting your hand raised or not. I go, and that's the wrong approach in this sport. You should be thinking about, hey, did I score the first points in this? I've never done that before. I scored first points. Great. Hey, maybe I won the first period. Hey, I got to a single leg. I've never done that before. We got to find this in a sport where it's brutal and you're going to fail a lot. You got to find the small successes. And that's how you grow. That's that idea of process over outcome. And again, I'm struggling right now with my own son being at a young age, being highly competitive and trying to get him. And it's that fine line because you want kids to want to win. You want it to mean something, but you also want them to understand it's not the end of the world and we can always get something out of those losses. And that's a hard thing for parents to understand and young wrestlers.
Right. You got to stay true to the process. It's really important. If you don't get through it, you're not going to. Those brick walls, they keep people out who don't want it bad enough.
Yep.
Number two, they train most consistently. One of the most challenging things about coaching youth wrestling is oftentimes not knowing when certain athletes will show up to practice. It's hard to be great if you can't be consistent. The coach's kids are usually gym rats. If Dad is coaching, the kids are in the room every practice. Wrestling dads show technique and consuming the most wrestling.
Yeah. And that boils down to, I always compare whether it's my athletes or clients I'm talking to. I go, think about like January 1st. Everybody makes a New Year's resolution and they are motivated to lose weight or whatever it is, and they hit the ground running. And then a month later, all of a sudden, that motivation weans out. And next thing you know, they're back eating like garbage. And again, I tell my wrestlers, I tell my clients, I'm just as guilty as doing these things. What it boils down to is we need discipline, right? You need to be doing things every day. And motivation is great, but motivation comes in peaks and valleys. Right? You need discipline to get you through those real tough times. And again, that's like that. You can't get good at something if you're doing it once or twice a week. There has to be that discipline of, hey, I'm going to hit something every day.
Right. Yeah. And we've always said that the best piano players play piano the most. The best writers write the most. The best wrestlers wrestle the most. It's not that hard.
It's a skill. It's a skill. And too often, I say to my students in class, and I go, I was guilty of this. When I was your age, I wasn't a good writer. I'm not a good writer. Yeah, some people are naturally gifted at certain skills. Okay. But the bottom line is it's a skill. And the more you do a skill, it is scientific. The more you do it, you're going to get better at it. It's just, do you have the discipline to push through when it's difficult and when you're not having that success?
Right. And there's always, and so it's like, if there was a writer's club that you belong to, right? If there was 100 people in an army of writers clubs, okay, you're getting better if you're one of the 100. Now, if you went to the top 20 writing clubs in the country, you're going to be around better, and then if you were in the top 5, you're going to be better still. So it's but again, it's just that consistency over time. It's the
consistency and surrounding yourself with the right people. the like-minded people. That, I mean, that's, you know, because again, you can have all the discipline in the world, and you can show up to a practice every day, but if you're not with the right partner, the right coach, you're not going to see the jumps that you want. So you got to surround yourself with like-minded people, you know, and that's like, you know, Greg Strobel once said, you know, it was great. I love this quote. I've got a video from him years back. And one of the things he says, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. And like, I try, like, hey, listen, the same kid can go to a practice, you know, 10 hours a week, but what is each kid getting out of it? You know, is that kid putting in is he rushing through moves and creating bad habits, or is he taking his time and perfecting the technique and making it, you know, making solid habits? And that's, you know, and again, that's tough for kids to understand because they want the quick fix.
Right, that American culture. I want everything now.
Yeah,
All the time.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was disagreeing with you.
Okay, number 3, successful wrestlers have perspective. Typically, the coaches who build the most well-run and high-achieving clubs were also successful competitors themselves. From what I've seen, Burroughs now, often it's the dads with the most successful wrestling careers who possess the most perspective. They recognize that the sport is hard. They preach and teach long-term success to the kids. They stress process over outcome and allow the journey to unfold without force in order to promote sustained excellence. Here's the good news. You don't need to be the coach's son to reap the rewards. Embrace patience over panic. Commit to consistency over an abundance of technique. Stick to philosophy and master it. I'm not advocating to remain in a place that they can no longer serve you. If you believe outgrowing a club may be time to find a new place that can continue to stretch you, I'm a big proponent of being surrounded by greatness. Our club is a landing place for wrestlers looking for more. But once you found it, lean into it and ignore the outside noise. And then he gave an Aristotle quote, which I love. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit.
Yep.
That's Gordon Burroughs today.
Yeah, it was just a great post. It really was.
Over 2,400 likes right there, and that's just a few hours ago.
Yeah. It's nice, you know. It's nice having the platform he does. I love the way he uses his platform. It not only promotes the sport, but it's, you know, what the message he sends out not only to wrestlers but also educating the parents. I think he does an incredible job. He really is such a great ambassador of the sport right now.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those things where he's, you know, you can see he's reflecting on it from a different perspective now as a parent and as a coach. So it's one thing from a competitor, that's one angle. As a coach is a different angle, and then as a parent, that's a different. So you're basically now you're turning it upside down and around. You're seeing it from all different perspectives, rather than just looking right at it. You're looking at it from the top down.
Yep.
It's like the orthographic view of you know, an architecture. So
that's you know, that's where I've, you know, and I say that all the time to like my wrestlers and students all the time, like years in the sport, years in teaching gives you perspective. It gives you you know, from a different lens. Now that I have a daughter who's a junior in high school, you know, a son who's in 7th grade, who's being, you know, starting to compete highly in the sport. Like, I look at things differently now, you know, where it was just coach to athlete. Now I'm like, okay, well, now I'm a parent of an athlete, and I have to view things differently. So like, I've changed my mindset in the approach based on how I am as a parent as well.
Of course. Yeah, no, it's just getting those different angles. You start to see where everyone's coming from, and that's where the empathy is there. And I think when, you know, people are looking at it like there's only one way to succeed, there's not. You know, you gotta be careful when someone tries to sell you that, because usually that's just a salesman right there. There's many ways to succeed. There's many people who've been able to do it, but I think just getting pulled in different directions, even from a mental point of view.
Yeah,
that's not good for you, because I remember having 2 different coaches in high school, and one was telling me don't ever hit my knees, the other one was telling me to shoot a high crotch. So now I'm doing it all different ways, and especially if you're a people pleaser, right?
Yeah.
Like, my brother Jeff had that too, but he wasn't as much of a people pleaser as me. So in his mind, he was like, well, whatever, I got to win, so I have to kind of do my thing. He was able to work through it. For me, that was a hard thing. And I mean, you know, that's how many kids are like that, right?
I struggle with that. I was a people pleaser as well. So I struggled with that. You know, I wanted to listen to all my coaches. I wanted to do what they said. And again, I was fortunate we didn't have as much of a choice at a young age. So I went to one club, NJAC. And I was, you know, Donnie DeFilippis was my partner. Dave Cordoba was my partner. And we wrestled, we banged.
Not
three
bad.
times, 3 times a week. It was great. Yeah, I had great partners in there. So like, we didn't have that luxury of hopping around. So that was a good thing. It was a good thing for all of us. And we competed, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And then for competing, how often do you think they should be? I know it depends on each kid.
Yeah.
What's kind of like a good rule of thumb to start with, or like when to back off, when to
Yeah.
flag maybe.
So this is what I always say to parents that ask me, like, hey, how much should I take? I go, that's got to be at a certain extent, it's got to be up to your son or your daughter how much they're going to compete. If they can handle losing and they want to go to big tournaments, like Burroughs mentioned that with Beacon in the Super 32 tournament, he wasn't sure if he wanted to enter them, and then he was like, I wanted to. So I was like, how am I going to tell my son no? If you can go out there and handle possibly going 0-2 and getting beat up pretty bad, and they can handle that mentally, then I think it's good for them to see that competition, especially if they're aspiring. Bless you. But at the same time, it's like, all right, sometimes as the parent, I got to know when my son or daughter needs to back off a little bit. Like, hey, I know you want to compete, but let's take a step back. Let's reorganize what we're doing. Let's attack this a different way. So, it's a little give and take. You have to have that relationship with your child. It has to be a two-way street. It can't be a one-way street, especially in this sport.
Yeah, because you could see it for some kids, and if they're not ready for it mentally or emotionally, it doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with them. It just means they're growing. It's like,
Yeah.
you don't like kids hit puberty at different ages. Well, kids reach different mental and emotional readiness. It's
Yep.
not saying. Here's the thing: when you're at a wrestling club, you are competing. When you're
Yeah.
going live, you're competing. So that's what I always think too. With my son, he's only 6. My oldest, he's 6, and it's like I'll say to him, "Hey, do you want to go to a tournament?" No, and I'm like, "Well, that's okay. He's wrestling live. That's good. Is it exactly the same? No. Does he know the rules and the intricacies? Is there something to be said about mat time? And of course,
Yeah.
it is. But that doesn't have to be right away. They compete in a different way.
Yeah. And again, I struggled that with my son. He's a 3-sport athlete. Since he could play in organized sports, he was football, wrestling, and baseball. And if you asked him what his favorite sport was, it depended on the season. But I will tell you, it was always wrestling was last. And I worked at multiple clubs in our area, and some of the clubs were 2 miles from my house. And I'd always be like, and I found myself trying to force him to go to practice. And then what I found was every time I took him to practice, because he didn't want to be there, he wasn't giving his best effort. So then I was getting angry, and that it all of a sudden it was spiraling out of control. So like a year and a half ago, I just said, from now on, Joey, I'm going to ask if you want to. Don't, no big deal. I'll go to practice. And that's kind of how we went. And he made a switch probably, I don't know, maybe November, December of last year. And he's like, Dad, I want to start going to a club. I said, whatever club you go to, that's where I will coach. And he chose to go to Iron Horse, which I was really happy about because I know the guys there, Nick Francavilla, Corey Cosmore, and at the time, Sean Lombardi. Like these were 3, guys that have been training some of the best kids in our area and in the state over the last 7-8 years. And the room there is, you can't beat the workout partners he's getting. So when he said he wanted to do that, I said, I'm all in, let's go. And now I have found he's like, hey, Dad, I want to stop playing baseball. And he's asking me to go to the club more than I'm actually going. So like me backing off of him actually helped a tremendous amount in his case. So, again, everybody's different, but for me and my son's relationship, that helped a lot. And now he wants to do it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't have to. Like, of course, we want the kids to wrestle. We all see how much it's helped us, and that's ideal. But it's one of those things too. We have to be very weary of. We're creating an arbitrary bucket that isn't necessarily something that has to be there for life. Like you have to.
Yeah.
We talk about faith. We talk about family. School, where you have to eventually get a job, and these kind of things, like working towards a career. But as far as like, yes, okay, health and fitness, yes, that's a given. Everyone needs health and fitness. But how you come to that, and recreation, how you come to that does not necessarily have to be through wrestling. And you have to love their freedom, not just tolerate their freedom. It's like 1.0 is you have to tolerate your kids' freedom in terms of decisions that aren't mandatory. But then
Yeah.
it's not just tolerating; you have to love that. It's like, well,
Yeah.
it's good they get that. I wouldn't want, like, you look back when you were a kid. Mr. Rogers said this. People forget what it's like when they were a kid. Would you want your parents to be dictating all of these things to you? Probably not. I'm not saying that the kids wouldn't necessarily want maybe a little bit more of a push in some ways, but
Mhm.
no one could say when they were a kid they wish their parent forced them to do this.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't think so.
no, absolutely not. And that's, like, again, that's as much as wrestlers, we see as adults, we see the value of the sport and what it creates as far as character and how that translates to success in life. So naturally, as wrestlers, we want our kids to wrestle, but it's not a sport for everybody. It's not like showing up to a baseball practice where that's fun. Like a lot of sports practices are fun. Wrestling practice, if you like wrestling practice, you got a little something wrong in your head because it's a grinding practice physically, mentally. So like it's got to be the kids got to want to do it. And if they do want to do it, the next thing is understanding the value behind of what they're doing. And again, putting things into perspective. And I fell into the trap. I played football, but wrestling was my love. It was the sport I did. It's what I wanted to do in college. But when I couldn't wrestle anymore, I got stuck in that was my identity. So one of the big things I'm trying to get some of my high level athletes to understand is like, hey, listen, man, wrestling is a part of your identity, but it's not who you are, and that's a hard separation sometimes.
A very hard separation because to be successful, you really do need to go all in. You do have to be
Yeah.
fanatical. But then if you take that too far, and that's where again, like how does a kid really figure that all out by themselves? And that's where I say really the mindset coaching is extremely
Yeah.
important because and getting that from someone outside of the family. Kind of like,
Yes.
well, you take my kid, I'll take your kid because it's
Yeah.
just hearing it from the parents have a certain role to play. The coaches have a certain role to play. The mindset coach has a certain role to play. There really is a true place for all of them. And if,
Yep.
if you want to talk about optimizing, like everyone wants to optimize these days, I get it. Well, then you have your coach, you have your parent, you have your mindset coach. Yeah, there might be a little bit of overlap here and there, but
Yeah.
everyone's got their lane where they could really help.
I think what I've learned too in my older age is my father was one of the hardest workers I've ever known. He was a mental mind coach for me without me realizing it. But again, back then, I wasn't willing to listen to what he was saying because he was my dad. I would hear it from somebody else. Now I see the value in what he said, and a lot of things he tells me, I kind of put onto my athletes, right? That perspective. And that's like you said, some people want to like do everything themselves with their kid, but kids respond better to somebody else, somebody that can look up to. And it's no offense to their parents. It's like, hey, this is someone that's not connected to me, that I can form a relationship, a trust relationship, and that I can be inspired by. And I think that's important because again, I'm Joey's father. I'm not his friend, right? I'm his coach, but I want him to have other coaches that he can lean on and talk to. And I think that is important for wrestlers, especially of wrestlers that come from wrestling parents or, like mindset coaches or whatever. It's important to get that information from someone else.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So what else do we have going on? What else do we hit on? I guess anything else from your system or anything else that we have coming up?
I mean, we got the youth seasons coming up next Monday, so I'm excited to get the kids back in the room, and then the high school season's right around the corner. And this is the my brother's an accountant, so he has like his tax season. So I'm always like, to my wife, I'm like, this is my tax season now. Like I know like what's coming up here. This is put your head down and grind time, and you hope nothing happens at the house because you're just never home. But like it's always the start of wrestling season. It feels like a weight on your shoulders, but once you get into it, this is it's where I feel the most alive, and it's what really drives me and motivates me. I just get super excited about that process, and again, I've done a better job of gaining more perspective as a coach in my years. I've been surrounded by the right coaches that have kind of given me a lot of good knowledge and helped me kind of like put things into perspective as far as, season goes. So that's helped me a lot. I used to take losses like really bad, and I've done a better job of, learning but moving on. So I get excited every year because every year I feel like I'm trying something new, learning something different. I don't want to ever be stagnant. I'm constantly trying to change things.
That's right. We're either growing or we're dying.
Yep.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff, Joe. I'll have to do it again. Really appreciate it. Thank you for
Yeah, absolutely. It was a blast. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
All right, Gene. All right. Take care, Gene.